You are live now.
Great. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to HCL Foundation Academy. I'm glad to come together again with everybody here on another of our webinars, which is on the breastfeeding and during the COVID-19. Let me quickly introduce you to HCL Academy once again. So HCL Academy is an e-learning platform working on a hub and spoke model with open distance learning through a learning management system that uses technology as a platform to disseminate knowledge on various thematic areas in social development sector. The idea is to upgrade the skill sets of development sector practitioners to be able to better deliver their work, thereby maximizing impact, bring scale, and promote sustainability in CSR projects. The specific academic courses are running on Canvas via web portal through defined learning paths. The courses provide on the academy are free of cost. Soon we'll be coming up with various courses on short and medium term courses on the academy on different thematic areas which are being developed and will be delivered by experts in the area. So today I'm very glad to present to you a seminar on web learning on breastfeeding during COVID-19. And let me quickly introduce the organization. The Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India is a 28 years old registered organization, independent, non-profit, and a national organization that works towards protecting and promoting and supporting breastfeeding and appropriate complementary feeding of infants and young children. BPNI works through policy analysis, advocacy, social mobilization, information sharing, education, research, training, and monitoring, and company compliance with the IMS Act. BPNI is the regional coordinating office for the International Baby Food Action Network, the IFAN, South Asia. BPNI also serves as the global secretariat for the World Breastfeeding Trends Initiatives, the WBTI program, which analyzes policy and programs and galvanizes action at the country level. As the ethical policy, BP does not accept any support from companies manufacturing baby food. With this, I would like to introduce our first speaker for the day, Dr. JP Dadhich. Sir, if we could move to the next slide. Right. So, Dr. JP Dadhich is the Director Technical BPNI. He's MD in Pediatrics, a fellow at National Neonatology Forum. He has been an integral part of the BPNI since more than 1.5 decades. He is a co-chair of the Global Council for International Baby Food Action Network. He has several publications in peer-reviewed journals and has contributed to several guidelines and chapters on breastfeeding and infant in young child feeding. So without taking much time, I would request Sir to begin with how do we support mothers for breastfeeding during COVID-19?
Thank you, Meha. Good afternoon, friends. In India, approximately 70,000 babies are born every single day. In normal situations, mothers are advised to breastfeed them. However, we are now passing through the COVID-19 pandemic. If a mother is suspected or confirmed of suffering with COVID-19 disease, their number may be very small in our country. But should we advise her to breastfeed, keeping in view the apprehension of transmitting the disease to the infant through breast milk? In my presentation today, I will try to answer this question with the help of available scientific evidence and recommendations by WHO, UNICEF, and Government of India on the subject. First, let us see how breastfeeding is important for child health and survival, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this is an established fact that breastfeeding prevents morbidity and death in the neonatal period, infancy, and childhood. In India alone, it can prevent 100,000 childhood deaths each year, major cause of these deaths being infections like diarrhea and pneumonia. One of the important factors helping to achieve this is the protection provided by breastfeeding against infections. This is mediated through direct transfer in the breast milk of several antimicrobial and bioactive components like immunoglobulins, cytokines, and anti-inflammatory factors. cellular factors like T and B lymphocytes, neutrophils, and macrophages, and human milk oligosaccharides. The graphic here shows the special way in which breastfeeding protects a baby against new infections which baby's mother may have. When a mother becomes infected, her body makes antibodies against the infection to protect her. These antibodies are secreted in her breast milk to protect the baby. Therefore, a baby should never be separated from the mother when she has an infection, because her breast milk provides protection against the infection. Interestingly, reports are now already emerging which suggest presence of secretory immunoglobulins A against COVID-19 in the breast milk of mothers with the disease. This is significant when we are discussing infant and young child feeding in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. Now we come to the question of transmission of COVID-19 virus through breast milk. So far, the available evidence suggests that replication competent active COVID-19 virus has not been detected in the breast milk of COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mothers. There are some case reports from Germany, Australia, and Italy about presence of detectable COVID-19 virus fragments in the form of viral RNA in the breast milk of COVID-19 positive mothers. While there are many other studies, some are given here, published during last few months, and they have reported absence of any COVID-19 virus, even the fragments in the breast milk. A scientific brief on breastfeeding and COVID-19 by WHO, published this week only, has reviewed all the available information about presence of COVID-19 virus in the breast milk. It has found that in all the available studies, breast milk samples were tested for COVID-19 virus in a total of 46 infant mother and infant pairs. Out of 46, breast milk samples from 43 mothers were negative for the COVID-19 virus, while samples from 3 mothers tested positive for viral particle, though live disease-causing virus was not detected in any of the samples. So in summary, we can say, so far there is no report of active COVID-19 virus, means virus that can cause infection in the breast milk of mothers with confirmed or suspected COVID-19. So what are the recommendations of global agencies like WHO and UNICEF on infant feeding by COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mothers? Key recommendations by these agencies include infants born to mother with suspected, probable, or confirmed COVID-19 infection should be fed according to standard infant feeding guidelines, while applying necessary precautions for infection protection and control, that is IPC measures. And when we say standard feeding guidelines, they include initiation of breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth, exclusive breastfeeding for first 6 months of life, and complementary feeding after 6 months of age, along with continued breastfeeding for 2 years and beyond. In case direct breastfeeding is not possible due to some reason, they have suggested alternatives like express breast milk, donor human milk, and other methods. They also recommend keeping the mother and baby together, skin-to-skin contact at birth, and kangaroo mother care. What are Government of India's views on this subject? Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India has issued a guidance note on the provisions of the reproductive, maternal, newborn, child, adolescent health plus nutrition during the COVID-19 pandemic. For infant feeding, the guidance says, and I quote, mother and baby to be nursed together as far as possible, and breastfeeding to be initiated within 1 hour of birth, within 1 hour of delivery, irrespective of COVID status. However, she should put on a face mask and practice hand hygiene before each feeding, unquote. So we come to the question now. Should COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mothers breastfeed? So in the background of all the scientific evidence about the absence of infection causing COVID-19 virus in the breast milk, presence of anti-COVID-19 antibodies in the breast milk, the WHO, UNICEF and Government of India in favor of breastfeeding, and importance of breastfeeding in preventing morbidity and mortality, mainly due to infections like diarrhea and pneumonia in children. This is prudent to advise mothers suspected or confirmed with COVID-19 to practice breastfeeding with appropriate precautions to prevent infection through respiratory droplets. So COVID suspected or confirmed mother should receive counseling and skilled support from a trained healthcare worker during pregnancy and at birth to practice skin-to-skin contact, initiation of breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth, and later rooming in, KMC if required, and exclusive breastfeeding. Avoiding separation and keeping mother and baby together helps in better temperature control in babies and initiating and establishing breastfeeding. It also helps in reducing stress in the mothers. To minimize the risk of infection through respiratory droplets, mothers should practice appropriate infection prevention and control measures, details of which I will tell you in a later slide. More importantly, institutions should develop and communicate the standard operating procedures, SOPs, for breastfeeding by COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mothers to all caregivers, mothers, and families. COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mothers having infants below the age of 6 months should practice exclusive breastfeeding. Mothers with infants and young children above the age of 6 months up to 2 years of age and beyond should continue breastfeeding along with appropriate, adequate, nutritious complementary foods. While breastfeeding, mothers should practice appropriate IPC measures. She should be appropriately supported to practice them. All mothers should also receive IYCF counseling and skilled support by a trained person. In case the mother is sick and or unable to breastfeed or separated from the baby for ICU care, her express breast milk remains the preferred choice. A healthcare provider can feed the express breast milk to the baby with a clean cup or spoon. Apart from providing all the benefits inherent to breast milk, expression also helps in maintaining the milk supply. If mother is not able to express her milk due to sickness, donor human milk, depending on availability, can be another option. Wet nursing may be done depending on acceptability, availability, and after ruling out the risk of HIV. If nothing works, then a breast milk substitute or animal milk may be given to the infant, depending on the availability and acceptance. And finally, all mothers should be supported to start breastfeeding once she recovers and feels well. Now, a few words about the IPC measures. COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mother should practice appropriate infection prevention and control measures to prevent transmission of infection to the infant through respiratory droplets. These include frequently washing hands with soap and water or using alcohol-based hand rub, especially before touching the baby. Wearing a medical mask. If medical mask is not available, breastfeeding should still be continued. Observing respiratory hygiene by coughing or sneezing in a tissue, disposing it in a closed bin, and washing hands with soap and water or using alcohol-based hand rub. Regular cleaning of frequently touched surfaces should also be done. Mother should receive logistic help to procure the appropriate items for IPC like masks, water and soap, alcohol hand rub, etc., to practice respiratory hygiene in the health facility and at home. She should also be given practical instructions through demonstrations and audiovisual tools to practice the IPC measures. WHO has provided a user-friendly decision tree or flow chart for breastfeeding in context of COVID-19, which is very useful in both healthcare and community setting. Those who are dealing with the pregnant and lactating mother may like to use it, which can help them in making decisions according to mother's condition. So these are the key messages for the caregivers and mothers both. COVID-19 virus is not transmitted in breast milk. The benefits of breastfeeding substantially outweigh the potential risks of transmission. All mothers, irrespective of their COVID-19 status, should be supported to practice optimal breastfeeding. COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mother and her baby should not be separated unless required due to sickness. COVID-19 suspected or confirmed mother should observe appropriate IPC measures. And if mother is too sick to breastfeed, best options are express breast milk followed by donor human milk and other methods. If you wish to check more information about COVID-19 and breastfeeding, you may go to BPNI's website at the URL given here. There is a COVID-19 and breastfeeding corner on our website, and a lot of latest information is available there. This is all I wanted to share with you. I stop here. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir. I think this was pretty technical and scientific, where we learned that breastfeeding is actually the benefits of breastfeeding during COVID-19 outweigh the risks, pretty highly, and therefore it is indicated that a mother should never be separated from the baby, and the mother should breastfeed the baby. With that, if you have any questions, please put them in the group chat, and we will take it up from towards the end of the session. As of now, we'll move towards the next part of the session, where we have Dr. Arun Gupta with us. Dr. Gupta will be talking us through the IMS Act and its violations. So let me quickly introduce Dr. Gupta. He is the Central Coordinator for BPNI. He's a pediatrician, a fellow of Indian Academy of Pediatrics, who chose to give up his lucrative private practice and founded the Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India in 1991. He focuses on policy analysis regarding support to breastfeeding women, child nutrition, and conflicts of interest. He writes nationally and internationally. He is the creator of IFFAN, World's Breastfeeding Trends Initiative. He is the convener of the Alliance Against Conflict of Interest and Nutrition Advocacy in Public Interest in India for policy level inputs. Before sir begins, I would request everybody to please keep their mics on mute and cameras off. Like I said, if we have any questions, we will take them towards the end of the session. So you may put your questions in the chat box. If there's a question that you would like to email us, we can also take that on email. With that, I would hand over the session to Gupta sir for taking us through the IMS Act.
Right. Thank you very much, Meher, for your invitation, and I am happy to talk to people on this aspect. So I'll take you through a story, a bit of a history. If you can all hear me well. So can you hear me well, Meha?
Yes, sir, you are audible to us.
All right. So let me quickly, because we are concerned about breastfeeding here. So this has a long history in terms of how breastfeeding, so the phrase which we used, protection, promotion, and support of breastfeeding. So these are three elements which are required to be successful for a mother. So mother needs promotion, means she needs right, accurate information. Secondly, mother needs protection. What do you mean by protection? She needs to be protected, and the family needs to be protected from the commercial influence, because there is a vested interest out there in the form of commercial baby food industry. So there is a need for protection. Thirdly, a mother needs a support system. The support system majorly are of two types. One is in the hospital, where we just heard Dr. Dadhich speaking about COVID and how a mother needs. So during COVID, it becomes even more important to provide all these three elements of protection, promotion, and support. Support element also includes a mother having maternity protection so that she can be along with the near her baby to make breastfeeding possible. So I'll be talking to you about the protection element, how we can protect uh, women and children from the commercial influence which has been there for ages. Now the story history goes back to the 60s and 70s, 1960s and 70s, when the world started noticing that there is a huge marketing campaign going on in the world, and most of the companies misleading mothers, putting them under severe doubt in themselves. If campaigns were like, if you don't have enough milk, so we have a alternative here. So when we examined that, it was actually the scientists which the industry hired, they were very clever. So they hit on a hormone which is called oxytocin. Many of you might have heard about this hormone, which acts as a couple of, at the uterus at the time of birth. At the same time, the same hormone helps to bring the milk down from mother's breast to the baby. The key is this hormone works on the confidence of the mother. If the mother is not confident, if she has pain or anxiety, the oxytocin lowers down and milk flow. The milk is there, but it doesn't flow. That creates a sense of not enough milk. With this became a universal phenomenon, and that's how this whole world witnessed a large kind of formula trial all over the world. So in 1979, the first global meeting took place, in which UNICEF, WHO, and several other agencies, they were invited to talk about, recognized there is a problem with the commercial marketing. It was recognized that it leads to health hazards in babies, and it must be settled. So that 1979 first global meeting of this kind recommended that there should be a international standard for marketing of breast milk substitutes. So 1981, the World Health Assembly passed a resolution which was called International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. Now, in every country was expected to follow up with a legislative principle on this international code. So very quickly, India did a code, and then it took about 11 years. In 1992, we got a law in our country. The parliament recognized this need, that there is a problem and we need to really work. The basics which the parliamentarians realized was the promotion of baby foods was much more pervasive than promotion of breastfeeding even. And they realized, and it was noted in the objectives of the IMS Act, statement of objects, that it leads to child health impact negatively, malnutrition, and even death. So that's the reason why IMS Act was enacted in 1992. Now, what does it mean? It means the IMS Act became a law in 1993, and in 2003 it was further, strengthened with a belief that breastfeeding is recommended for 2 years or beyond. So it requires a protection that long at least. So what this act does, the provision of the act are, it bans any kind of promotion for children food under the age 2. For example, if you are making a food, producing a food whichever food, anything, any name you call it, there is no way you can promote it. You can't put it on a television advertisement or a billboard. You can't put it on a print media. You can't advertise through any medium, whether it's electronic or, any, it use a very wide connotation here. No one can use any medium for such an advertisement. Second, which is very important, the law prohibits contacting a pregnant woman by the industry representatives. So since it was noticed earlier, in several years in Africa, in Asia, all over, the companies had hired nurses who will visit home, introduce formula, and this became a kind of a scandal. So it prohibits any incentives. Thirdly, it prohibits giving any kind of gifts. For example, if you buy a pack of baby food, you get a bowl free. This was very common earlier, if you probably recall, in the TV advertisements, which we don't see anymore. So no more free gifts to people for promotion of baby foods. Next key recommendation, key provision of the law is it restricts donation of the products to any institution. Like the companies cannot donate their products for any purpose or their educational material or equipments. Then another provision is there is no way a company can put a picture of a baby or a mother or any graphic to increase the sellability of a product. The products included in this law are foods for children under the age 2, which includes, like you might have heard about, the various companies who is selling the breast milk substitutes like lactogen and other stuff, and then foods like Cerelac, Ferex, and other cereal foods, and feeding bottles. So these are the products under the scope. So there is a prescription that you cannot put any picture out there. Next section is the state has a duty, the government has a duty to ensure accurate information to all women, pregnant and lactating. This is not the duty of the companies to reach out because they usually mislead people. So the provision is the accurate information should be provided. Then the next couple of provisions are regarding hospitals and clinics and chemist shops. You cannot put any advertisements outside a chemist shop for baby foods. You cannot put posters of baby foods in the hospital wards or your clinics, in the doctor's clinics. This is very important to keep a note. Companies cannot give any money for research or for hosting a conference or a workshop to any doctors associations. This is very important because this was rampant earlier in early 90s and in late 90s, but this law finally struck. Last point, which in the provisions is this, that a company cannot give commission on sales to its representatives. Like, for example, you will do this much sale, you will get more money. So that kind of commission is not allowed. Now coming to the, what do you gain by this? When you have such a law, some people worry, the industry keeps on criticizing, oh, we have this business rights and all this. Now, what is the, for you to understand and remember, as on today, China sells about 760,000 tons of baby milk. And India sells only about 30,000 tons of baby milk. So that's the difference. If there was no law, China's law is very weak on marketing. India's law is very strong, and we are China is growing very rapidly in its baby food sales. So our babies are somehow getting a lot of protection that they don't get this ultra processed food, which is harmful, inherently harmful into their body. So currently, coming to very quickly, I'll take next couple of minutes to let you know what is happening now. Companies are taking the opportunity of COVID-19 to exploit this situation further, distributing free baby foods, taking the help of NGOs, police, administration, all together, bringing them an photo opportunity. And people might not be aware that this is going to damage. And if we have got the evidence there, this has been given to very poor families where babies are as small as few months. And you know what it is mean? If a baby replaces this food, the breast milk is replaced by this food, for some babies, it becomes a question of a life and death. So that's why the law prohibited it. We got information from Jamshedpur, Jharkhand. We got information from West Bengal in Jalpaiguri district, and similar thing happened. Then we have another, which is very heightened these days, is the companies, all kind of companies hiding behind, like there is a Nestle Nutrition Institute, which is Nestle's floated body, putting up webinars along with doctors. Now they get confusing information out there for people, and mislead people for this. That's why it's important that we are aware of such things. Another company, we have Danone, again reaching out through calling them trusted sources. They put up doctors there, calling it voice of experts, and giving misleading information, which is incorrect, against the advice of WHO, separating mothers or causing a distance between mothers and babies. Similarly, another company, which is Abbott, also trying to flee doctors and support. So these are the examples. And now we have a bottle company called Medela selling bottles on discount in Amazon, which is also prohibited. The law does not allow any discount on the sales of baby foods or feeding bottles. So I will close here with a request to all the participants that whatever you understand, I know it's the time, in such a short time, it's very hard, but you can follow us on BPNI website. There's a whole detail of this law. And if you have a question, we can answer right now, or even later, you can send a mail to BPNI also directly. But I will request you, if you gain something out of this today, and you please share with one of your friends, colleagues, family member, what is banned and what should be recognized as banned. Monitor what the companies are doing in your area and share those information with us. That will be very helpful. So we are an authorized organization to go to the court, to report to the government, and we draw this attention of the government to check this unnecessary, harmful, unethical, illegal act of these companies, which interferes with breastfeeding, undermines breastfeeding, and compromises health of our babies. Thank you guys for your attention, and over to you, Meha.
Thank you, sir. I think it was pretty enlightening when you said that. I was not aware that putting ads of baby food is actually a violation of the act, and this is something that I've learned through this session only. So there are a couple of questions that have come to us, on our emails, and we would like to sort of take them up. There are a couple of questions which have come in on the chat, and they are answered also. So, sir, one question is that you mentioned that there is a role of the oxytocin, and how comfortable the mother is made to feel while she's breastfeeding, sir. So, if you could shed a little more light on that aspect. Second question is that when somebody witnesses the violation of the act, how do they reach out to you? And then, sir, we'll take the next questions from the chat. So, sir, to begin with these two questions, If you could help us understand, and then we'll take questions from the chat.
Can you, may I repeat the first question? I got the second, but can you repeat the first one again?
Yes, sir.
If you
So
can
the
repeat, I
first
can
question is
write
that,
down. Yeah, go ahead.
right. So, sir, you had mentioned that there's there are hormones involved,
Right.
like the oxytocin, and how comfortable the mother is made to feel while she's breastfeeding, which impacts the quality of the milk that the mother is able to express or
Okay.
produce while she's breastfeeding. So if you could
Right.
shed some little more light, because until now, we hear a lot of women say that that they do not, they're not producing enough milk
All
to
right.
be able to feed their child.
Okay. So let me just quickly share that, there are two hormones which are responsible for production and production as well as flow of milk from mother to the baby. So one hormone is called prolactin. The prolactin produces milk in the breast cells as we produce any other fluid in our body, like tears, like urine, saliva. All these fluids are actually produced by the cells in the body, like mouth cells in the mucosa of the mouth produce saliva. Similarly, eyeball cells produce tears. Similarly, it is a secretion of the cells in the breast. How the mother's milk is produced, it is dependent on suckling of the baby. If a baby suckles more, the prolactin secretes more. It is a hormone secreted from a pituitary gland in the brain of every individual, and from there it goes to the blood and acts on the breast cells to produce more milk. That is one part. So key here is, if a feeling of not enough milk, so more suckling means more milk. So more frequent breastfeeding means more milk. Of course, it has to be effective and all. Second, the hormone is called oxytocin. The oxytocin hormone it makes the milk flow from breast to the baby. Now, this is initiated by the suckling of the baby, but it is dependent on how a mother feels and thinks. If she is feeling confident, happy, lovely about the baby, then the milk starts dripping by itself sometimes from the mother's breast. When she thinks about her baby, that is when the oxytocin is acting. If she has a pain anywhere in the body or anxiety, or somebody goes and tells her that, okay, you don't have enough milk, a doctor or a sister or a family member or a colleague, people have this habit of telling mother, you don't have enough milk, because we are living in a world where we have a perceived risk of inadequacy of breast milk by the mother. So that's a problem which is universal in nature. In last 40 years I've been watching, you go to any place in the world, or in a village or in a slum, you go to any place where you can't even take a vehicle, you have this feeling there with the mothers. So companies were very successful in their campaigns 50 years back, so that they could plant this fear in the mother's mind. So what we need to do as health workers is building confidence of women right during pregnancy, that you are fit to produce. Every mother is physiologically able to produce enough milk for 2 or even 3 babies, depending upon, because the more babies, they'll suck more. But what I am trying to say is here, there is no condition. This is a perceived risk. It is not a condition. Not enough milk is not a disease to be treated. It can be managed with better counseling, skilled counseling, support to the mothers, rather than putting pressure on the mothers, okay, you must breastfeed, you do this, without helping her. That doesn't help. If you can't help a mother, then you please don't expect her to be successful also. So that's one part. Secondly, you asked a question about, if you find any violation, whether it is a violation or not, sometimes it's difficult to make out. We would appreciate if you think it's anything doubtful, take a picture or take any information available where industry, baby food industry is doing something Wrong, for example, giving an advertisement of baby food. Secondly, if they are sponsoring a meeting of doctors, sponsoring research of doctors, putting a free gift out there, whether it is COVID or non-COVID. So if they are doing something of this nature, if you note, kindly stop them giving the reference of this. And BPN, you can send a mail to us at bpni.india@gmail.com. So we will take it from there and keep you informed also on the progress. We do report to the government Ministry of Health, so they do write to the states where it is happening. So this is the slowly we can keep a check on it. Yeah.
Right. So, sir, we have a couple of questions coming in. I think Dr. Dadhich has already answered them. There was a question on what is wet nursing. So, Dr. Dadhich has answered them. There was this one question that we have received is that a lot of pediatricians, basically, or maybe a lot of times when a baby is born in a private hospital, doctors recommend, bottle feed or, जिसको हम ऊपर का दूध कहते हैं from the very beginning. Uh, in such case, how do we sort of, and they also recommend a lot of alternative baby food. So in cases like this, how can this be tackled? Another question that has come to us, and I will put it right here so that we can line up this question, is that while we are in the situation of COVID-19, where there has been a shortage of food for a lot of people in the community, and people and a lot of companies and a lot of organizations have doled out fresh hot cooked meals and dry ration kits. So what is the recommendation for a mother who is breastfeeding? Is there a recommendation of how much food or what kind of food should she be given? Or is there any recommendation for children under 2 for what should be given to them in a dry ration kit or in a hot meal by the government of India?
Thank you, Meha. The first question first. Hospitals, they have a responsibility to practice the standard recommendations, global recommendations given by WHO and UNICEF and adopted by Government of India, Ministry of Health, as well as Ministry of Women and Child Development. And explained those standard guideline recommendations, initiating within 1 hour of birth, and then exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, and then continued breastfeeding for another 2 years or beyond, along with complementary feeding. So these standard recommendations, there is scientific reason behind having these recommendations. A lot of research has gone in to develop these recommendations. As Dr. Arun was saying, that the problem is that each mother requires support antenatally, at birth, and afterwards in the form of counseling to practice these guidelines, recommendations, and sometimes skilled support also. So, for example, if a mother is a first-time mother and she doesn't know how to attach the baby to the breast, so she may require practical help from a trained person, a person who is trained in lactation management. Maybe in the hospitals, people are not trained either, or they are not having time, because it requires time also, because if you have to counsel the mother, you have to sit down with the mother, you have to talk to the mother, and then if mother is having any questions or queries, then you have to answer those questions and queries. And if mother is saying that she is having difficulty in latching and attachment, then that skilled support has to be provided. So it all takes time. And so both things are there, that the person should be trained and the person should also have time to talk to the mother and help the mother. So this should happen at the hospital level, because if hospital practices are not supporting the mother, then it becomes difficult for mother to continue successful breastfeeding later on. And this was a problem all over the world in the hospitals. So in early 90s, there was a global program which was launched by WHO and UNICEF called BFHI, Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, BFHI. That program was adopted by many countries. Governments were involved. The WHO, UNICEF at national level were involved. And there are 10 steps for a hospital to practice to support, help mother to be a BFHI hospital. And all these things are included there. So if any hospital is not doing those things, then probably they are not doing correct things. It is as simple as that.
Right. So, sir, there is one question that has come in, and I think that's a question that a lot of people are struggling with or might have struggled with in the past. And there is another question that I had asked, and we'll go back to it again in a bit. So this question, since we are talking on the issue of counseling support and support to the mother while breastfeeding, is the question is that that my 15 days old baby is feeding on formula as my wife is struggling with milk supply. Though she always lets the baby suckle first for several minutes, but it is not sufficient. Should we move to the formula milk, or should we continue with suckling for longer periods? So here, what is it that can be done to help some mothers like this? Because right now, I think it's very difficult for even mothers to go to the hospital again and again to seek support. So at home, how can we help mothers right now, people who are just having babies and struggling with these kind of questions?
Yeah, this is a difficult time. I mean, we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, so there are logistic problems, I agree. But in the usual times also, these things happen actually. And such mothers, they certainly need help from a skilled person. I mean, maybe the mother is suckling the baby, but the latch is not proper. I mean, there is something which has to be observed by a skilled person. The baby is attached to the breast in a correct way. And once the baby is attached in a correct way, the rest of the thing will be done by the baby. I mean, the how much milk a baby gets, mother doesn't decide it actually. It is decided by the baby. And as Dr. Arun was saying that there are two hormones, prolactin and oxytocin. More the baby suckles on the breast, more milk will be produced through prolactin. And if the attachment is proper and mother is relaxed and mother is not having any worry and there is no negative thoughts in her mind, then oxytocin reflex will also work and baby will get more milk. So probably this particular mother needs support from a skilled person, maybe digitally or some way. The parent should consult a person, yes.
Right. So another question that has come.
I can add on a little here.
Yes, sir.
Can I add a little here, because I read that question and I answered also in the chat to the friend Vineet Singh who is attending this. So I think his wife needs urgent help in terms of the 15-day-old baby. It can be success or failure for him. So I won't mind, you can give him my number, you can talk. At least we can help whatever we can little do on the phone itself to understand, or a video call can be done. So if she is willing to talk to us, me or my wife can help immediately. So you are free to give my number. Secondly, if they want to read more, they go to BPNI website in the information support section, where we have information for parents, a kind of a chapter on how to be successful in breastfeeding, which is just like few minutes reading, which helps in the practical tips. So that will be my guidance to parents who are just struggling actually right now. That's my, because every mother needs, you have baby being born every seconds, so every mother needs a different kind of help. So that's why I wanted to intervene here, that don't take it lightly. So Vineet Singh, so you can contact us. Yeah.
So I've shared your number with him, sir, and I hope he'll contact you.
Sure.
So another question that we saw right now was that, is there some exercise that can help mothers with milk production, or it's something that it's just one of those myths around breastfeeding?
Exercise, I read that question also, but I couldn't get the meaning of the exercise. So the point is that when there is a feeling of not enough milk and you want to increase the milk supply, the principle remains more suckling, more milk. That it's not the it's a hormonal control. People need to understand that, and going anywhere outside that domain, whether it is diet, whether it is exercise, whether it is any kind of food which increases milk supply, all these are secondary stuff. If the hormonal system is incorrectly functioning, the milk supply is unlikely to be appropriately for the baby. So we focus on the mothers, building mothers' confidence, and not on the outside stuff, which includes it could be part of it that there are some massage done on the breast along with this building confidence thing. So that can only be physically done by a trained lactation person. So there is nothing like any general exercise which helps. Yeah.
Right. So, so one question is that another question that has come is also very important is that how do you stop breastfeeding? So how do you wean a child off breastfeeding when 2 years phase has finished?
It's a very good question. Normally, this is if somebody feels that I have to stop breastfeeding, if a mother feels that, right? So this feeling is very, very rare in my experience, or even a documentation. Both a mother and baby decide. Most of the times, the babies and mothers, they know when to give up, and normally the babies start giving. So when we intervene a lot to get the baby away from the breast, the baby gets actually insecure. So when the baby is insecure, the baby wants to latch more of for security purposes, for emotional security. So the more we try, the worse the situation gets. So I will allow a natural transition from when the baby is 6 months old, we give solid foods in addition to mother's milk, because mother's milk is not enough for the growing child. So we have to add additionally, that's why we call complementary food. Complementary food means in addition to breast milk. So the moment it is increasing now, from 6 months to 24 months, the complementary food goes on increasing, and breast milk feeds slowly go on decreasing. So that's how the babies and mothers decide how and when the time has come. Slowly the children wean off themselves. The recommended period is 2 years or beyond, but it can happen earlier also if a mother is unable to practice breastfeeding because of her condition, situation of work or whatever. So slowly the babies do learn to adapt to the other food. If we pressurize a baby too much, I think that's where the parents get missed. The babies are not babies. As William Wordsworth said once, child is the father of man. So we need to take babies seriously.
Right. So what I hear is that it's a natural process, and the baby should get to decide when he wants or she wants to wean off. But I think that it is a question of that the parents want to sort of take the baby off. They actually want the baby to wean off. Rest all factors are fine. I mean, in terms of the food, the complementary food is fine, and the baby is only coming there to come for comfort and for that feeling of attachment that the child gets while they're breastfeeding. So I think the question is more of on those practical lines that how do you actually wean the baby off, and then we know that there are a couple of methods which have been suggested by in our folklore. So maybe what we'll do, the question has been asked by the person. We'll send them your email ID, and possibly they can write to you and sort of seek more help and support on this question.
Sure.
But right, but
Sure,
as
sure.
we hear now,
Yeah, it requires a long discussion sometimes, no doubt about that. So
Yeah.
we will welcome any of this nature. You can give our number or email to them.
Right. So another question that has come is that with the current situation, the frontline workers, they are mostly involved in now COVID-19 duties, and the regular services which they were providing, including lactation support and counselling, have been disrupted. So how do we help the pregnant women and the women who are lactating mothers in this time when the person that they could go to, which is their Asha or the Anganwadi Behan or the ANM for these kind of questions and for these kind of support, what happened? What do we do now?
No, if we are directly communicating to pregnant women and lactating women, I think that for the pregnant women, I would suggest that discuss on breastfeeding during pregnancy once at least. So talk about it. If you have if a woman has any doubt about it, or if she has inclination to give formula, we need to talk about it and decide finally that I don't want to give it, or I want to give it, or whatever. So that's the time when the decisions can be firm and women can stick to those decisions. Somebody asked a question about the hospital also, it applies there also. So if a woman goes for an antenatal checkup, she should insist on a discussion on breastfeeding during pregnancy. We are trying our best that doctors do it, government does it, but we are not yet very successful. Ideally, it should be a formal pregnancy antenatal session on breastfeeding. BPNI is trying to come up with a solution by the end of this year to begin an antenatal portal on breastfeeding only for pregnant women to start discussing breastfeeding about that's one. Secondly, when the mother is breastfeeding already, if she has a problem, if she wants to consult somebody, how long should I continue exclusive breastfeeding? I think the best thing is to contact the nearest health worker wherever she is. You have rightly mentioned about Asha and Anganwadi workers. And if it doesn't help, then she should go up in the meeting a doctor somewhere in the primary health center or in urban areas, in hospitals. Many hospitals have lactation counselors or trained people. Not all, but people are beginning to, recognize the presence of lactation counselors now.
So while we started the discussion, there was this word that we came across, which was the World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative. If you could shed some light on this initiative, what it is, what do we do with this initiative, and how can it help us, in the long run?
Okay, World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative is a global program which BPNI conceptualized and designed in 2004 and 5. What it does is it creates a group in a country through our global network. We have network operating IPFUN network in 160 plus countries. So what we approach our coordinator in that country, and we create a group of people in a country, like 5 to 7 people belonging to infant feeding, UNICEF, WHO, government. So we create a core group there. That core group, and then we give a uniform tool to them. So there is a tool for testing the policy of a country. That there are 10 parameters in that policy tool, where like how your hospitals behave, what is your maternity leave, what is your funding spent on breastfeeding, how do you coordinate this program, what do you do when the disasters like earthquakes strike, what do you do when women has HIV positive, what do you do when the women are actually going to a hospital, how do you give information to women, how frequent. So there are 100 plus questions which have to be answered either objectively or subjectively with evidence. So once that they complete that analysis, that comes to us, we verify at the headquarters, then we come and go, and then once it is finalized, then the report is put on the web portal, which is WBTI portal. As on today, anybody can go to the worldbreastfeedingtrends.org and find 98 country policy and program reports are available there. In terms of what the tool also does, we give a color coding and grading to the countries, that where country stands now. Like out of 98, who is number 1?
So who is number 1?
Sri Lanka at the moment.
Sri Lanka at the moment. And where does India stand, sir?
India is for like 43 or 44 or something. Okay. No, 70, sorry, 70 something. India is at 76.
76.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a long way to go.
Yeah, we encourage this policy test every 3 to 5 years so that we know the progress. And unfortunately, India is not making much progress for the last 15 years on its policy support. Only 6 months maternity leave, which was sanctioned by law in 2017, will start showing its impact maybe for 10 years from now. So that's the point. We also do one thing, that same core group leads advocacy effort in their country. They present those reports to the government, and we have now recently done evaluation from information from 51 countries, and it has worked very well and started increasing breastfeeding rates. We have started with the HCL Foundation. I'm sure you are aware. We have developed a tool for states of India now. We are calling it State Breastfeeding Trends Initiative, and 3 states have also started beginning the analysis in their states based on a uniform tool. And we hope by the end of the year we will have some findings from them, and next year we will use those findings for advocacy to launch action in those states. And we might add more states once we know lessons from these states will help us to get into others. If there is
Yes.
any specific question anybody has, again, we are open to receive those questions.
Right. So the last question that we will take, sir, is that for any disaster, what is the recommendation of Government of India? What should be done for mothers who are breastfeeding? So basically, for babies under 2, what is the recommendation? What is the diet that should be given to mothers? Like I said, a lot of organizations have provided hot cooked meals, dry ration kits. So usme what is there that is meant for children in that under 2? What is to be given to the mother? Is there any recommendation available on that?
There is no specific dietary recommendation other than what is given in a guideline, uh, which says homemade foods prepared at home, cooked foods, maybe some energy dense foods at that time when the children don't get to eat anything. In situations like this, our advice is not to get into the baby foods, because baby food companies are very active these days. They push their formula for nothing without it. So we advise that there should be a assessment at the level of individual family, that what do you need for that. If a family needs food ration, give them ration so that they can cook themselves. Number 2, if a family needs, for example, uh, some kind of ready-made food, so the cooked food as given in Anganwadis and all, similar kind of kitchens can be made there and supplied. So giving these processed foods at that time, occasionally it might be okay, but it is becoming a kind of a norm which actually displaces families. So because ultimately, after a few days of either a crisis in Odisha or earthquake or a tsunami, the life begins to settle at home. And when the life at home is full of these tinned products, then one can imagine, where we are heading to. So that's the reason that in a country like ours, I don't think we can afford to add on such foods. Babies like as small as 6 months, they need, at 6 months you need a different food. 7 months you need a different food. 8 months you need to change the texture of the food for babies to swallow. 9, 10 months they start getting nibbling things. In 1 year they are sometimes ready for the whole food, or 15 months they are ready. So there is a lot of change actually, which is from 6 months to 24 months in the life of a baby. So it's not static that you give this and keep on giving this. That's not an ideal thing to do. Yeah.
I
Yes.
think Dadhich sir has something to add.
Yeah, I would like to add here and giving another perspective to this. There is this tendency of distributing infant formula and infant foods particularly infant formula, blanket distribution of these products. Blanket means if, say, for example, in a community, there are 100 mothers, breastfeeding mothers having smaller kids. And according to our data, NFHS 4, only 5% mothers are not breastfeeding. 95% mothers are breastfeeding mothers. And here you are distributing these products to all the mothers. That is called blanket distribution. Those 95% mothers should be supported to breastfeed actually. And if 5% mothers are requiring it, they may be given. I mean, that is called targeted distribution. So only 5% mothers should be provided some other food. Other 95% mothers should be supported to breastfeeding. In fact, if you do this, then probably you can prevent the ill effects of these products in those 5% babies also, because then you can explain to them how to use it, what are the problems that may arise, and how to tackle those problems. And when you distribute it as a blanket, then you just distribute and say nothing else. So that was I wanted to share.
Right. So with this, we would like to close the questions and answer session also now. And I think there's a question from Sabita Das. If sir, you could reply to it in the chat itself. It's the second last chat from from where we this thing. So, sir, thank you so much for coming and giving us such enlightening knowledge and also building our awareness on breastfeeding during COVID-19. And now I invite Simi to extend the formal vote of thanks from HCL Foundation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dadhich and Dr. Gupta. It was really wonderful hearing you. Though I always considered, breastfeeding is such a natural thing, and but I am also a mother of 2 children, and I was just, resonating with what all you were sharing. How it was I was just recalling all those moments were passing by. How it was with the first child, because when you shared, you are happy seeing the child, and the confidence is there. Yes, definitely, very rightly shared by you that you do need support from people who are experienced and telling you how to handle and all that. So one is very comfortable. But then I recall my second child, it was, then you tend to take it for little granted, and you think that you will do better than before. Rather, I ruined it for the second, because the formula started very early, at 3 months only. The baby couldn't digest it. So I had a tough time, and I can see the difference between the 2 children. So I was just resonating, and I was just going back and reliving those moments, what all you shared. Absolutely, I'll say 100%, it is perfect. And though that confidence, those soft words, they can really help a mother so much.
Right.
And this is where the fear factor, stresses and all that, restrict that free flow of milk. So I must say it was, as I'll say Meha is technically also very good at all that vocabulary, which I cannot get into. So it was very informative, and I think very generalized also, which I'm sure the audience who are there must have had a lot to take away today in this session. So I formally thank you on behalf of HCL Foundation. Thanks for being there. And we look forward to more such sessions. And thank you for taking some calls also personally, because there is a young father within the team, and I'm so happy he has joined us, and he immediately said, oh, how to go about it. You can imagine the kind of stresses
Exactly.
the young new parents feel. So
Exactly.
thank you for all your cooperation and help. Thank you.
We are
Thank
very pleased. Thank you for having us. And we are very pleased to be here. And whatever little we can do, we will continue.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Meha.
Thank you, Simi. Thank you, sir. Anshu, over to you.